The Hells Angels roared onto the scene in 1948. They started in California. Soon, they spread across America. Their reputation grew fast. They became known for their tough image and love of motorcycles. The Hells Angels weren't just about bikes. They got involved in other activities too. Some were illegal. This made them feared by many, but it also made them powerful. They expanded internationally in the 1960s. As they grew, the Hells Angels faced challenges. Other gangs wanted a piece of their turf. Some groups weren't afraid to stand up to them. This led to fierce rivalries. The battles would shape the biker world for decades. The Hells Angels symbol became well known. It was a skull with wings. People recognized it everywhere, but not everyone respected it. Some gangs saw it as a target. They wanted to prove they were tougher than the Angels. The Bandidos emerged in Texas in 1966. They quickly became a force to reckon with. Their founder was Donald Chambers. He was a former Marine. Chambers built the Bandidos into a formidable group. The Bandidos expanded rapidly. They moved beyond Texas. Soon they had chapters in many states. They even spread to other countries. This growth put them on a collision course with the Hells Angels. The Bandidos weren't afraid of the Hells Angels. They saw themselves as equals. This attitude led to conflicts. The two groups often clashed over territory. Their battles were fierce and sometimes deadly. One of the Bandidos' mottos is, "We are the people our parents warned us about." This shows their tough image. They pride themselves on being outlaws. This mentality made them willing to challenge anyone, even the Hells Angels. The Outlaws Motorcycle Club has a long history. They started in Illinois in 1935. This makes them older than the Hells Angels. The Outlaws expanded across the Midwest and beyond. They became one of the big four motorcycle clubs. The Outlaws and Hells Angels have been enemies for decades. Their rivalry is one of the oldest in biker history. It's also one of the most violent. The two groups have fought countless battles over the years. One of the Outlaws' slogans is "God forgives, outlaws don't." This shows how serious they are. They don't back down from fights. When the Hells Angels tried to move into their territory, the Outlaws fought back hard. The Outlaws use a skull and crossed pistons as their logo. It's almost as recognizable as the Hells Angels' winged skull. This shows how big the Outlaws have become. They've proven they can stand toe-to-toe with the Angels. The Mongols Motorcycle Club started in 1969. They formed in Montebello, California. Many of the first members were Hispanic. This was unusual for biker gangs at the time. The Mongols grew quickly in Southern California. From the start, the Mongols clashed with the Hells Angels. They weren't intimidated by the Angels' reputation. The Mongols saw California as their turf. They were ready to fight to keep it. One famous incident happened in 2002. The Mongols and Hells Angels had a huge fight in Laughlin, Nevada. It took place inside a casino. 3 bikers died in the brawl. This showed how serious the rivalry had become. The Mongols use a Genghis Khan figure as their logo. It represents their fierce attitude. They see themselves as warriors. This mindset has helped them stand up to the Hells Angels for decades. Section 5 Pagans, East Coast Rebels. The Pagans Motorcycle Club formed in 1959. They started in Maryland. The group spread along the east coast of the United States. They became a major force in that region. The Pagans are known for their fierce independence. The Pagans have had many run-ins with the Hells Angels. They don't allow Hells Angels chapters in their territory. This has led to violent clashes. The Pagans are willing to use force to protect their turf. One big conflict happened in 2002. The Hells Angels tried to open a chapter in Philadelphia. This was pagan territory. The Pagans responded with violence. They attacked Hells Angels members. This showed they wouldn't back down. The Pagans used the Norse god Surtur as their symbol. Surtur is a fire giant in mythology. This represents the Pagans' fierce nature. They're not afraid to bring the heat when challenged. Section 6 Rock Machine Canadian Contenders. The Rock Machine formed in Quebec, Canada in 1986. They were a smaller club at first, but they grew quickly. They became known for their bold actions. The Rock Machine wasn't afraid to take on bigger clubs. In the 1990s, the Rock Machine went to war with the Hells Angels. This conflict became known as the Quebec Biker War. It lasted for 8 years. It was one of the bloodiest biker wars in history. The Rock Machine stood their ground against the Hells Angels. They were outnumbered, but they fought fiercely. The war involved bombings, shootings, and many deaths. It showed the Rock Machine's determination. Later, the Rock Machine joined a larger group called the Bandidos. This gave them more strength, but they had already proven themselves. They had shown they could take on the mighty Hells Angels. Section 7, Confrontations and Clashes. The conflicts between these gangs and the Hells Angels were often violent. Many took place in public. There were shootouts in bars and on streets. Some happened at motorcycle rallies. These events shocked the public. One famous clash was the Great Nordic Biker War. It involved the Bandidos and Hells Angels. This war lasted from 1994 to 1997. It spread across Scandinavia. 11 people died. Many more were injured. In the United States, conflicts often centered on territory. The Hells Angels would try to expand. Other gangs would resist. This led to battles in many cities. Places like California and Texas saw frequent violence. These confrontations weren't just fistfights. They involved serious weapons. Gangs used guns, bombs, and even rocket launchers. The level of violence showed how serious these rivalries were. It also attracted a lot of police attention. Section 8, Bold Moves, why these gangs stood tall. These gangs could stand up to the Hells Angels for several reasons. First, they had strong leadership. Their leaders were tough and smart. They knew how to motivate their members. This helped them face the Angels. Second, these gangs had strong identities. They were proud of who they were. They didn't want to be seen as weaker than the Hells Angels. This pride made them willing to fight, even when outnumbered. Third, many of these gangs had military backgrounds. The Bandidos' founder was a Marine. Many outlaws served in Vietnam. This gave them combat experience. It made them formidable opponents. Lastly, these gangs were often defending their home turf. The Mongols protected California. The Pagans guarded the East Coast. This gave them extra motivation. They were fighting for their territory and their pride. Section 9, Aftermath, consequences of the conflicts. The conflicts between these gangs had serious consequences. Many people died. Hundreds were injured. The violence affected innocent bystanders too. This led to public outrage. People demanded action from the police. The wars also attracted media attention. Newspapers and TV shows covered the conflicts. This put pressure on the gangs. It also made it harder for them to operate secretly. Their activities were in the spotlight. Some gangs faced legal consequences. The government used RICO laws against them. These laws target organized crime. Many gang members went to prison. Some clubs lost a lot of their strength. The conflicts also changed the biker world. Some smaller clubs disappeared. Others joined bigger groups for protection. The landscape of outlaw motorcycle gangs shifted. The strongest survived, but they were changed by the battles. Section 10, Law Enforcement's role. Law enforcement played a big role in these conflicts. Law enforcement played a big role in these conflicts. Law enforcement played a big role in these conflicts. At first, police struggled to control the violence. Biker gangs were secretive. They were hard to infiltrate. This made it difficult for police to stop the fighting. Over time, police developed new tactics. They used undercover officers. They worked with federal agencies. The ATF and FBI got involved. This increased pressure on the gangs. Many high-ranking members were arrested. Police also used new laws. The RICO Act was a powerful tool. It allowed them to target entire organizations. This made it easier to bring down gang leadership. Many clubs faced serious legal troubles. However, law enforcement faced challenges too. Some people saw bikers as folk heroes. This made it hard to get public support. Also, the gangs were good at adapting. When one tactic worked, they would change their methods. Section 11, the legacy of biker gang rivalries. The rivalries between these gangs and the Hells Angels left a lasting mark. They changed the world of outlaw bikers forever. The conflicts showed that no gang was invincible. Even the mighty Hells Angels could be challenged. These wars also changed public perception. People saw the dark side of biker culture. The romantic image of free-spirited riders was tarnished. Many now saw bikers as dangerous criminals. This affected even law-abiding motorcycle enthusiasts. The conflicts led to changes in the gangs themselves. Some became more secretive, others tried to improve their public image. Many focused more on legal businesses. They wanted to avoid the heat from law enforcement. Today, these rivalries continue, but often in less violent ways. The gangs have learned from the past. They know that open warfare brings too much attention, but the tension remains. The biker world is still divided by old grudges and territorial lines drawn decades ago.